Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Iron Dome podcast. I'm here today with an incredible guest. Everybody welcome Noa Reuveni to the podcast. Noa, it's so great to have you here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So I'll tell you a little bit about the amazing work that Noa is doing. Noa is somebody that I look up to and respect deeply because she's an incredible activist spreading the word about how to support Israel and, most importantly, to bring back the hostages. Noa, you are friends with Ziv and Gali Berman, who have been in Israel now for over 615 days as hostages. We pray for their return every single day, and I'm excited to hear your perspective on things and to see what we can do in America to help people raise support from here. So thank you very much. My first question to you is, can you please share your story a little bit, introduce yourself to the audience, and explain what's most important to you?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Noa, and I'm 26, and I come from a very, very small village in the south of Israel by the Gaza envelope called Shachar. And Shachar is basically second line of the Gaza envelope kibbutzes. So the first line would be all the kibbutzes we've heard of, which are Kfar Aza, Nachal Oz, Be'eri, and we are behind them. And I grew up there my entire life, and in my opinion, it is the most beautiful area in Israel. And as funny as it sounds, it's also the most peaceful area in Israel.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point of view. And life there was really, really great. I loved my childhood growing up there. I went to Sha'ar HaNegev Regional Council High School, and that is where I met Ziv and Gali Berman. They are 27-year-old twins now, and I met them during high school. And as I say, the rest is history. It's been around 8 years since, and today Ziv is the closest person to me in this world. He's my best friend, and he's my secret keeper and the person I go to for advice, and just truly the closest friend that I have. Ziv and Gali live in Kibbutz Kfar Aza. They were born and raised there, grew up there, loved life there. They lived in a neighborhood called the Young Generation neighborhood, Dor Tzair, which is the closest neighborhood to the border in Kibbutz Kfar Aza. And for those who don't know, Kibbutz Kfar Aza is one of the kibbutzes that is right on the border of Gaza, meaning that the fence is obviously right outside. You can obviously see Gaza from the kibbutz. It's that close, and I feel like every time I try to explain how close it is, it's really hard to describe to people who haven't been there. Only when you go there, then you actually realize, wow, this is so close. If you could drive in with a car, it would just be a few minutes drive into Gaza. And so Ziv and Gali lived there, each in their own little apartment in that neighborhood, which consisted of many, many young people from the kibbutz or from outside of it who chose to live there in their adult life. And as I said, life there was really, really good, and they enjoyed living there. Ziv and Gali have two older siblings as well, so there are 4 boys. And their mother's name is Talia, and she's an incredible woman. And their parents have lived in the kibbutz for many, many years now. And on October 7th, Ziv and Gali were home. My parents were home in the moshav, in the village. I actually wasn't in Israel on October 7th. I was in California on a delegation of American Jews and Israelis. For me, it was a Friday evening, and in Israel, a Saturday morning. And just like everybody else, I also received the notifications on my phone of sirens going off in Israel, which I'll say is not something that's too unusual. I'm 26, and I grew up with 20 plus years of sirens and missiles and rockets to a point where it's kind of being normalized, and we kind of became numb to it. And I'll say that at least my generation, we're just not afraid of it anymore. And maybe the younger kids are, but us, it's just, we were born into this reality. We don't know any other reality that doesn't include running into the shelter every now and then. It's become so normalized to us. So when I see the sirens, when I see the notifications on my phone, I don't get too alarmed because it's something that's pretty normal. Me and Ziv, we have this unwritten protocol where whenever there is sirens, either at his place or my place or both of ours, we'll text each other and we'll ask each other, are you okay? Are you in the shelter? And as soon as I see the sirens, I text Ziv. And it takes him around 25 minutes or 30 minutes to finally respond to me, which is very, very rare that it takes him this long. And the first message I received from him that day is, Ani met mipachad, which is translated to, I'm scared to death. And that was a moment where I immediately understood that something was off, because never in our 8 years of friendship have I received a message from him that he's scared of anything, especially not for missiles and rockets. I know he's not afraid of that. So I knew something else was going on. I asked him, where are you? And he says, I'm in my room in the bomb shelter. I ask him, where's Gali and where are your parents? He says they're home locked in the shelter as well. And the next thing he tells me at 7:30 in the morning is, I'm telling you, I can hear Arabic outside my apartment. Which indicates, obviously, that we're talking about terrorists. But I have to explain that when Ziv tells me he hears Arabic outside his apartment, first of all, there's nothing reported on the news yet about a terrorist invasion. It is way too early in the morning. And the second thing is that because he's not supposed to hear Arabic outside his apartment, I don't even think that these terrorists came in from Gaza. But I think they came in from Israel, from the West Bank. That's how much it didn't make any sense that somebody could actually cross the border. We texted from 7:30 to 9:45, which all that time pattern in our conversation is how many times Ziv has expressed his fear to me and how scared he is. And the best that I could do was just tell him, I'm here and I'm with you, and just hang in there a little bit longer. Just wait, and they're coming to rescue you, and the IDF is coming to rescue you. And at 9:45, I received my last text message from him, which was, I'm scared. And at 10:05, he receives the last message from me, which was, I'm with you. And then his phone shut off and never turned on again. And that was the last time that I heard from him. And that was over now 615 days ago. And ever since then, life has completely changed.
Well, no, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I give you a lot of credit for having the courage to tell that story. Can you tell us a little bit about Ziv and Gali's personality? You know, Ziv sounds like a macho man. He's not afraid of the missiles and everything. Tell us a little bit about who they are as people.
So Ziv and Gali are, first of all, non-identical twins, even though in the photos they look very, very similar. But in reality, I feel like it's very easy to tell them apart, not only because they look different, but also their personality is a little bit different. Gali is like the handyman of the house. He like does things with his arms and legs. He's very good with his hands. He's like the one who fixes somebody's flat tire or builds an IKEA furniture for someone. And Zivi, on the other hand, is a little bit more calm and mellow, and like his friends call him the lazy one, because he can come back after a long day of work and just binge watch Friends over and over and over again. It's his favorite show.
Yeah.
And we say like the one thing you can't argue with him about is like he will recite every single Friends episode better than you.
That's my type of guy. I don't know. I might give him a competition.
Oh, really? So he loves Friends. He loves Marvel as well. Those are the things that we kind of bonded over.
Yeah.
They're both huge fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv, the soccer team.
Right.
Huge fans. So they love soccer. They love playing soccer. They love watching soccer. They both also played in the Kfar Aza soccer team.
Wow.
Which is called the Foxes of Kfar Aza.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah, they had tournaments with like other kibbutzes. But they also really are like the biggest fans of Maccabi Tel Aviv. And they go to every single game. And even if they happen to miss a game because they're working, they will open the game on their phone at work. Speaking about work, they both work together in the same company. So Ziv and Gali have never been apart. And I think something really special about them is that they're not just siblings and twins, but they're also best friends of one another. And they say that about one another, that they are each other's best friends.
That's beautiful.
So they were together in kindergarten and primary school and high school, and everything they did together, everything. And even now in their adult life, they work in the same company ever since they were 18, a company called Syncopa. And basically they worked as like the light people for performances and concerts around Israel. And they really enjoyed their job, and they loved just being together. And I remember when Gali went to travel after the army in his like after military trip in South America, Ziv really, really missed him and said like, oh, I have to join him, even though he wasn't planning to. And after a week, I remember he like was like, I miss him too much. Like I gotta go. Like I gotta visit him.
Yeah.
So they really have this like amazing power twin couple, this twin energy where they enter a room together and they're present and they're dominant and they are the funniest people. And I think something really special about them is that after October 7th, when all of their friends got together, we all say the same things about them. We all say they're the people we would call if we'd be stuck in the middle of the night on the other side of the country. And they're the people we would call if we needed advice or someone to put a smile on our face. And I think that says a lot about a person when everyone says the same things about you.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, they sound like two amazing individuals from your perspective. I'm going to ask you now, you've really paused your life ever since October 7th happened, and you've dedicated yourself to this incredible activism in the community. You've traveled all around the United States and in Israel and Hostage Square. I've seen a lot of videos of you. It's really amazing what you're doing. And I want to know, how exactly did that get started? How did you, become able to achieve such great things so far? And what can the community do to help you move forward?
So, as I said, on October 7th, our lives have completely changed, and we entered the status of the families of the hostages. And even though I'm not blood related, like, Ziv and Gali are my family, and I consider my friends my family. That's how much friendship means to me, and that's also how much friendship means to them. And their family and their friends mean everything to them. They will do everything and anything for their family and friends. And I feel like I value friendship the same way that they do. And on October 7th, after realizing that Ziv and Gali were kidnapped and are taken hostage, and this was around the 10th or 11th day that I found out, after they were missing for all these days, I realized very soon that I now am stopping everything in my life. And I was a college student before that, and I was working, and I was traveling, and I was fulfilling my goals and dreams in life. And on October 7th, I just dropped everything behind. My life completely froze out of the realization that now I'm entering the most important battle of my life, and that is to return my loved ones back home. And then nothing else matters. Job doesn't matter. School doesn't matter. Nothing else matters more than them, more than bringing them back home. I also realized very soon that if it's not us, their family and friends, who are going to fight for them, nobody else is going to do it for us. Nobody else is going to be their voice. Now, if I could, I would go into Gaza and get them out of there. Trust me, I've thought about it multiple times.
I believe you. Mm-hmm.
But since I can't do that, the only thing I felt like I can do is use my voice. Use my voice to be their voice, to raise awareness, to talk about them. Because what I felt that was going on is that as time goes by and as the day goes by, we're basically normalizing the situation, and they're being forgotten. And they're just becoming posters of pretty people. And people are forgetting that behind these posters, there's actual human beings who are going through something so horrible that you can't even put into words. And so I started just coming to Hostage Square and speaking to groups and sharing my last conversation with Ziv and our friendship and who Ziv and Gali really are and their story, so that people will personify them. So people will remember that they are human beings and not just posters. So people will connect emotionally in a way that they'll want to fight for them, that they'll want to do something for them. And I started speaking to Israelis and non-Israelis and Jews and non-Jews at Hostage Square in Tel Aviv. And it came to a point where I spoke sometimes 7 days a week, sometimes 6 times a day, back to back. And I started doing this at the beginning with the nonprofit of the Families Forum. They have this advocacy where groups come in and then they pair them up with family representatives, and then they speak and share the story of their hostage. So I did that with them, and then we got a lot of groups coming in at the beginning. It came to a point where I just did this for so long that also my name kind of started going around, and then people eventually also said, okay, what you're doing is great, but this also needs to be heard out there in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've started flying me out. So this now is my 4th tour in the States since the war has started, where I go around college campuses and Jewish federations and synagogues and non-Jewish organizations as well, and whoever's willing to listen. Because I feel like all we want is to be heard. All I want is for Ziv and Gali's story to be heard, is for them to be remembered, is for them to be talked about. Because I feel like the day we stop talking about them is the day they'll be forgotten, and that day should never come. And I also feel like it is our moral duty, as first of all, as human beings. And that is why I speak to non-Jews, because it's a crime against humanity.
Absolutely.
Is what it is.
Absolutely.
And I think people forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is it is our moral duty as Jews, because these people are our brothers and sisters. And I look at every single one of the hostages like they could be my brother and sister and father and grandfather. Mm-hmm. And I always say, even if Ziv and Gali will return home tomorrow, I'm not going to stop my fight until the very last hostage gets back home. Because that's what you do for your family. And that's what's special about the Jewish people. It's the fact that you can cry over someone on the other side of the world that you don't even know just because they're Jewish. It's that unity that we have and how much we care for one another. So I think that's what's special about us. And that's why we should fight for them. And also, the family's voice is not big enough and it's not strong enough. And unfortunately, we need people with us in this fight. And people need to show the families that they care about their loved ones, that they care about the hostages, that they want to fight for them. So going back to your question, how can people fight for them? Which is, by the way, the number one question I get in every time I do one of these talks. People ask me, so what can I do?
Right.
And I always say this. I say, well, if I could ask you to get them back home, obviously I would do that. But we both know you can't do that. But I think that still there are things that people can do. And there's no one practical answer. This will be like a whole spectrum of things you can do, which maybe for some people are a little bit more intense and some are a little bit more on the easy side. And it starts with walking with a yellow pin or a yellow bracelet or wearing the dog tag or putting something yellow like a sticker on your car or a picture of a hostage by your desk in your office. And it's talking about them. It's getting to know the hostages, but truly getting to know them, not just their name and their age on the poster, but who they are, what are their hobbies, where are they from, who's waiting for them back home. Getting to know them so that we'll know the stories, we'll connect to them emotionally, and we'll be able to spread the stories, which that's a really important one in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think when you humanize them that way, especially as you've done here today, it really makes me feel in particular, exactly like you said, like these are people who could be your brothers and sisters, and there's really no difference between them or you and me.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about how you have internalized the American response so far. And I mean, not from the government or anything, but from the people in America. You know, we're in New York City, and it's crazy here to see what's going on. You know, people have lied about Israel and attacked Jewish people personally, even in the schools here, in the universities and things like that. I personally think it's so horrible, and it made me feel from this side, you know, in America, as an American, it really pushed me to join and want to become part of this fight. But for someone like you who is from Israel, what do you think about what's going on here? How do you view it, and how do people in your city think of it?
So I think that what's happening in America, in the sense of anti-Semitism, is a direct result of years of neglect of the Israeli advocacy and that connection as well, in my opinion, between diaspora Jews and Israel. In my opinion, it's years and years and years that this has been neglected and the focus was not on it. And then here's the outcome. And this is rooted, I feel like, in so many things. It's rooted in the education system in America. It's not just like, where did this come from with college students? It's
right.
Rooted inside. It's professors. It's like inside. It's in curriculums. Like, it's things people talk about. It's rooted in a society so much. Other than that, I think that it's also a trend. It's become a trend, and for our generation, it has become a trend. Seeing what's happening is like, it makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard seeing that you don't have support around the world. It's hard seeing that my fellow Jews around the world are experiencing these things, that it's not just us in Israel who what we've experienced is terrible, but also Jews around the world now are experiencing violence and harassment and whatnot. And it's really, really difficult that it has come to that. But I think that in general, the response I received, I'll say that first of all, the hug and support I got from the Jewish communities is insane. Like, these things, and it shows, like I said, when things happen to Jews, we get together and we unite, and we should get together, by the way. And the hug that I received and the support and how everyone wants to fight for Israel and the hostages from the Jewish community is absolutely incredible and very, very heartwarming. And I'll say that there's a lot of non-Jews as well who are very, very supportive, very. And there's a lot of people who are just scared. They're just scared to put their voice out there and their opinion. And it has come to that, to a point where people are just actually scared. And I always say this, I always say to a Jew, I say, don't give the bully what they want. The bully wants you to put away your Star of David necklace. The bully wants you to be afraid to be Jewish. Don't give the bully what they want. On the contrary, you should get together with your Jewish peers, show each other that you have that Jewish unity, that strength. That's what Jewish peoplehood is all about. The moment we're all going into hiding because people are scared, and it is scary, it is very violent. And I myself lived as a Jew abroad for 5 years, and I experienced anti-Semitism when I was like around 10, 12 years old for the first time in my life.
What happened? What exactly do you mean?
so I lived in Stockholm, Sweden, because my dad is a diplomat. And it was during an operation in Israel, which happened every now and then, every summer, where there were a lot of rockets fired at Israel. And I remember just going to school and being bullied about it, and how, especially in Scandinavia and Europe, anti-Semitism was quite a big problem, and Sweden had a lot of it. And I remember how, like, the son of the rabbi that lived in our neighborhood, he also was like, people were throwing stones at him, and how, like, these are things that I remember from a very young age. I remember from a very young age being told, hide your Jewish identity. Don't tell anybody you're Israeli on the street. Don't speak Hebrew. Don't wear any shirt that has Hebrew on it. Put away your Magen David necklace. From a very young age. As a rebellious teenager that I was, I said, I don't like that. I don't
true
want to
Israeli
hide.
fashion.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I don't want to hide who I am. I don't think I should hide who I am just because they're being violent and they're out to get me. I don't want to give the bully what they want. And so I really stand by that point to this day. That I feel like when Jews go into hiding because of that fear, which is reasonable, yeah? But when they do that, we're losing the one power we have as Jewish people, and that is the power of Jewish peoplehood, the unity, how we have each other's backs. And so I always tell people, get together with your Jewish peers, host events together, go to rallies together, do whatever you can, but get together with them and don't drift apart from them, because now more than ever, we need each other.
Right. You know, one thing that you mentioned that I find really interesting too is that you have found a lot of friendships and a lot of support in the non-Jewish community. Yeah. The story that you just explained, a lot of people have unfortunately seen anti-Semitism around the world for the longest time, thousands of years of our history. It's very interesting to see that when Israel is in the news all the time, and so many people are so strongly anti-Israel and anti-Semitic, frankly, they just hide it well. Not really well, but they try to hide it. There are plenty of people who come from a non-Jewish background that have really been so strongly in support of Israel. Yep. You know, for me, I've seen that a lot with Iron Dome Coffee. You know, a lot of people who write to me all the time are Christian Zionists. Yeah. And I think it's so beautiful because I think I've said this for a long time, but I think some of our strongest voices are our non-Jewish friends. Do you agree with me? And what do you think about that? 100%.
I have met, and specifically the Christian community, have shown so much support that I myself, as an Israeli and a Jew who is on the other side of the world over there in small Israel, didn't know that this even existed. Didn't know that Israel meant a lot to Christians that much to that point, and didn't know that, there are people who care. It's so easy to look at the ones who don't. It's so easy to look at they call themselves the pro-Palestinians, but in reality they're pro-Hamas, because if they would be pro-Palestinians, they'd be condemning Hamas.
Exactly.
But those and the encampments, and we see all that and the violence, and because it is scary and because it's violent, it's getting a lot of coverage as well on the news, and it seems like it's big and it seems like there's a lot of them, and we kind of forget all the time that there's another side. There's another side who does support us, because we focus usually on the negativity and not on the positive things. But there's a lot of people who do. And I actually say this, when people ask me, how do you handle that? How do you handle when you encounter someone who doesn't support Israel, who's anti-Israel, who's anti-Semitic? How do you encounter that? And I say, well, we're a generation that likes to simplify things. So I simplify it and I categorize it, okay? So in my opinion, on one end, there's what they call themselves pro-Palestinians, like I said, pro-Hamas. And those people are the ones who, will be up in your face, wearing the kafiyas, out there protesting, very violent usually. The ones who don't really want to engage and have a conversation with you, they're not there to talk about things. They're there to just put things in your face and blame you and try to get you to say the wrong thing. Those people, you can't really interact with. They're the ones who will curse and be violent as well. Those are the type of people. Those people, I don't even engage with. I don't waste my energy on them. To me, that is negative energy that just you say choose your battles. That is a battle that I'm choosing not to take, because I know no matter what I'll say, I can show them all the videos from October 7th. It doesn't matter. And so it's a waste of my time and a waste of my energy. So those people who are usually behind the keyboard, it's usually on social media, or if they're up there in front of my face, I say, okay, it is what it is. I'm not going to be the one to change your mind no matter what I tell them. And I'll also tell you this, it's like been a dream of mine that one of these people will come to my talks to listen to me. But they don't want to talk to me. They don't want to hear this because the one topic they can't argue against is the hostages. That's the one thing that they can't. Like, they don't have any argument against that. So they will avoid any kind of interaction with someone who is close or related to a hostage. And so that's one group. Then we have the other side, and that's the pro-Israelis. And that's people who are Jews around the world, the Jews in the diaspora, or people who are non-Jewish but are Israel supporters, or who have a Jewish partner or Jewish friends or have been to Israel. Those are those people. And I say invest in them because they're our ambassadors. Because at the end of the day, we're all the way in Israel, and we need someone to share their stories and share what's happening and talk and fight for us. And these people are important because they're our supporters and they're our brothers and sisters, and they are our ambassadors at the end of the day. And then there's the middle group. And that for me is the most important group. And that middle group is the people who are, don't have a solid opinion on Israel. They heard genocide, they heard apartheid, they heard all these big words, they heard hostages, but they don't really have a solid opinion either because they're scared, because they know that any sort of side they're taking, because this has come to, it's either this or that. You can't do both. It's like you can't also have, can't be pro-Israel, but also have like mercy and or just feel like, I don't want war. And yes, war has casualties, and unfortunately Palestinian people are dying, but I don't want that. But people think, no, you can't have both. It's either this or that. And those people that don't have a solid opinion yet, and some are scared because they know it will have certain consequences.
Yes.
Whatever they choose will have consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people I focus on the most, because those are the people that are actually willing to listen. Those are the people that really I can change their mind. That's the battle that's worth taking for me. So that's how I go about it in my life.
It's really interesting because I live and breathe these political debates on YouTube. I watch every last one. I'm obsessed. In the background of whatever I'm doing, if I have earbuds in, it's likely that I'm listening to these things. So I have heard the entire range of opinions. Some of them are incredibly brilliant, and some of them are the dumbest things that I've ever heard, right? For those people that are still in the middle, these days, you're right, it feels like there are none of them. And there's so many ways that you could try to bring them to Israel's side. What one thing, and I know it's a really tough question to ask, but you've been doing this for a while, right? So what is the one thing that you think is the best way to bring someone to our side? The best point, the best reason?
So I'll say that I think the best way, and I don't call this like bringing someone to our side, but I say it's telling them, it's sharing, it's informing them basically on what's happening. Because that arrogance of the Western world to think that you know what's going on in the Middle East and you have certain opinions on it, but you think you know what life is like there, sometimes that gets to me. That is, to me, insane how people can voice. I don't think I have a right to really talk about what's happening in America. I've never lived here. I don't know enough about it. But the fact that the West does have this, it's this arrogance, to me, that's absurd. But to go back to your question, I make it humane. I avoid at all costs statistics and numbers. They love going into numbers. I think that's their number one case, is showing numbers, which, by the way, again, who's posting these numbers? The Ministry of Health in Gaza. Who's the Ministry of Health in Gaza again? Remind me? Oh, yeah, it's Hamas. Mm-hmm. So they love going to that. I need them to remind them of that. But also, I say, okay, let's not talk numbers, because it's not about numbers. It's the opposite of what we're trying to talk about. We're talking about humanity. We're talking about a crime against humanity. Need I also remind you, who started this? Who started this war? Who wanted this war? And also, how could this war end? And let me tell you, it's a very simple answer. If they brought all the hostages back home. It's that simple. Why aren't they? Because they're a terror organization.
Right.
People are forgetting all of this. So that. I also connect people emotionally. I shared my personal story. I talk to them about, the pain I'm feeling in my life. Nobody can argue against my pain. Nobody can argue with someone who has a testimony and a personal story. And so it's bringing your experiences as Jews, Israelis, whoever it is that you are, because all of us have our stories, and making it emotional and making it personal and avoiding numbers and making this humane. And you know what? Sometimes it's listening to the other side. It's telling them, okay, like, I want to engage with you. I want us to have a conversation. I'm willing to listen to what you've heard. And also, when someone comes up to me and like just shoots at me all these random facts, I say, where have you heard this? How? Like, where? Why do I ask a lot of questions? Because I want them to understand that their source isn't valid. And I do that by asking them a lot of questions. You'll also find that so many of them have no idea what they're talking about. No idea. And so I always tell Jews around the world, if that's a fight you're willing to take and you want to do that, you gotta learn a little bit about the history, about the conflict. And let me tell you, even a person who's lived there their entire life, even I can't claim I completely understand the conflict or have an answer to it. Nobody can say that, in my opinion. But inform yourself as much as you can, because I guarantee you the person who will argue with you knows way little than you do.
Yeah.
So there's also that.
So I'm going to change the pace a little bit, and I want to focus in on that emotional journey that you mentioned just now. I can't imagine how difficult it is for you to have seen everything and to have gone through it, and every day to just feel that pain in the background of your life for over 615 days now. So my question to you is, how have you dealt with that pain, and how have you channeled it into your work, which I believe is the most important and the most admirable thing that I've seen, really. So how have you dealt with the pain on a personal, human level, and what can you say about that?
I think that Israelis are resilient not by choice, but by circumstances, unfortunately. It's in our DNAs. It's in our DNAs also as Jewish people. And I think that there is no other way. Like, people ask me, how do you get up in the morning with all that pain and longing that you're feeling towards your loved ones? And I say, there is no other option. So what's the other option? It's giving up. It's surrendering to the pain. That's not really an option. It's in our DNA to fight. It's in our DNA to get out there and fight for what we believe in, and fight for our people, and fight for our country as well. And so the pain is there, right? Like, it's falling asleep at night. That's very difficult. And it's feeling guilty for opening the refrigerator. And it's feeling guilty for being able to walk outside and look at the sky. And it's feeling guilty for sleeping in a bed and for being able to take a shower. It's feeling guilty for every little thing in life. And it's always there, the guilt in the back of the mind. And the sadness, I think I've never experienced such deep sadness in my life. And I always say that I will never be happy until all of them will return back home to us. And Israel will never be able to even begin a healing process until all of our brothers and sisters will return home to us. I don't even think we'll be able to begin it. So I think it's a really, really big part of our recovery and rehabilitation is their return. It has a lot to do, I think, in the Israeli society that even the Israeli society does not understand. And yet, how do I go on? For me, it's my activism. For me, it's my going out there and doing something and feeling like I'm doing something for them and feeling like I'm fighting for them. I'd rather do that than to sit at home and just wait for something to happen. I'd rather go to the army and help and go to reserves and do something and fight for my country. I will never be the person that sits at home. For me being active is what also helps me. So in a way, I'm also benefiting from that, from the fact that I feel like I'm doing. So I would say that, like, it's insanely difficult and I'll never be able to explain it to anybody, the pain. But it also what keeps me going.
That's beautiful. That's really beautiful. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional just listening to your story, and I think it's so amazing. I wish there were more people like you who were fighting so hard for this cause. And have you been able to inspire people in that way? Have you seen the consequences of you going and speaking and doing your thing? Because I think that would be the most incredible achievement of all. And you really wouldn't just be doing something, but you would be doing the most that you could possibly do, which seems like you're doing already.
If you'd ask me, I would tell you that I feel like I'm doing nothing. And I feel like I'm doing nothing because at the end of the day, I'm not the one that's getting them back home, which is obviously like what I want to do. And so I feel like I always feel like I'm not doing enough. And every single morning I wake up in the morning and I ask myself, what can I do for them today? And every single night I go to night sleeping, what can I do for them tomorrow? And every single day, it feels like it's not enough. And you have to reinvent yourself. And when I started doing this and speaking, I never planned what I was going to say. I never wrote notes down. I don't come and have a presentation. I'm sharing a very authentic, eye-level reality. Not even a story, but a reality. And I never thought of what impact it would make and what really I'm trying to do. I just wanted to share who they are. I just wanted to share their story. I just wanted to help their family. That's all I wanted to do. Eventually, I've noticed that, okay, maybe this is making a little bit of an impact, because suddenly people come up to me at the end of my talks and they tell me that they are inspired by me. And people are very emotional, and people are now saying, okay, I'm going to take on something and I'm going to do something for the hostages, and I'm going to do something for Israel. And you inspired me to come to Israel. And those things to me are like I can't even like fully, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming to me that like, who me? Like, by what? Just talking? Like, how is this possible? How is this even happening? And to this day, like the feedback, I feel like it kind of like goes in one ear, out the other. Like I'm not willing to kind of accept and come to realization that what I'm doing is impactful, because it doesn't meet what my goal, my end goal. But I can tell you that like I've been touched by the stories of people, like the messages and the love I receive from people who are saying, like, we heard you speak and you really did, it changed things in us and you did influence us. And, you know, it was like, I'll share a story that like I went to Hostage Square on one of the days, and this girl like comes up to me, she runs, and she says, oh my God, Noa, I can't believe it's you. Oh my God, oh my God. And she comes and hugs me, and I'm like, who is this? And now I speak to thousands of people that like, I don't remember all of them. And I really, really wish, the one thing I wish I had is like more capacity yes, to remember all of them, because I want to. But I'm like, okay, she probably heard me speak. She comes to me at hospital and she hugs me and she's like, oh my God, I'm so excited to meet you. She takes a photo with me and she goes like, you won't believe it, but like, I'm volunteering here because of you. And I said, what? And she goes like, I heard you speak a few months ago, or a year ago it was already, and you inspired me so much that I've decided I'm going to come and I'm going to volunteer at Hostage Square. And to me, that was so mind-blowing, so mind-blowing. There was the fact that like there was someone out there in the world who's heard me speak, and because of that, she's actively volunteering at Hostage Square. And she said she's like keeping Ziv and Gali in her hearts, and like she's doing this for them. Like the amount of people who this story is with them, I don't even think about it on a day-to-day basis. So to see it was like so incredible and overwhelming at the same time.
You know, I opened this up the right way by saying that I want to be exactly like you, you know, and it's really unbelievable, because when you see something like that, how strongly do you react? Like, how do you feel when that happens? Like, does it really reinforce the belief that what you're doing is, you know, really getting through to people? Like, what was that moment like for you? How did you internalize that?
It's first of all, it's like I almost can't believe it. Like I can't believe that they're talking about me. Like me? No, I'm the simple Noa 26-year-old who like was anonymous and also would like to remain anonymous and private in my own life. Mm-hmm. But I put my vulnerable story out there for a greater cause. So I can't really like understand it and comprehend it, but it gives me like, it's exactly that reinforcement that motivates me to continue. Like it's exactly those comments and that feedback that says, okay, Noa, like maybe this is good what you're doing. Maybe like you are becoming a voice for Israelis and for the Jewish people. Like maybe this is what people need to hear. Maybe people are looking for that. I felt like people were eager for that connection. They wanted to hear the stories. They really wanted that. And you're giving them what they want, and you're informing them on other things, and you're showing another perspective of an Israeli. There are so many, right? Nobody represents. I don't claim to say I represent Israelis or Israel in itself. I always say I represent myself. And I want to only represent myself, but I'm another voice. And I think that the most impact, though, for me is when I speak to non-Jews. When I speak to non-Jews, and I think that's one that really hits home for me. That's one that I say, you're doing something. Even if it's 1, 2, 3 people, you're doing something.
You know, the word Zionist gets, let's use like a slur over here. But what I think, and what people really have a hard time understanding, is that I think that Israel's fight is representative of the world's fight. I think that Israel's enemies are the enemies of the free world.
Yeah.
And when you consider how you'd like to live your life, especially something that I think very deeply about, it's like, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be remembered for? And something that you've clearly accomplished is that you're known for, helping the Jewish people and the broader pro-Israel community live another day, and seeing people who have really followed in your footsteps, especially young people follow in your footsteps. There's nothing more beautiful than that. And I commend you. I tip my hat off to you for that, because I really do wish there were more people who wanted to push the world forward in that way. And they didn't see it as this tribal, ancient style fighting between two religions or two countries. I believe it's a fight for humanity, between people who accept freedom and individual freedom, things like that, and others who are against that. I really believe that Israel is on the right side of humanity, and whether it's now or one day in the future, the world will see it. So I applaud you for that. Another thing I want to lock in on here is that growing up driving distance, you said a short drive from the Gaza border. What I think is so crazy about that and hearing that is that a lot of people push to the side, like you mentioned, that Hamas took innocent civilians, especially peace-loving people who went to express their, desire to one day have a better world. These were people at a rave who are, really known for their peaceful way of life. And you saying that it was like that in the city that you grow up, it really drives that point home. So can you tell us a little bit about, one, your city, what the people are like there, and two, how crazy it is that the people who were fighting for peace were the ones that were attacked and then are now being forgotten about by the broader global media, and why there's a need to fight for them?
So I'll say that around that area, like, the stereotype is that the people who lived by the Gaza envelope are more liberal, right? And there are, I would say, more people who definitely drove Palestinians in and out, and opened up their homes and helped care for them and drive them to hospitals, and this was really, it's true. There were a lot of them. I'll say that my specific village that I grew up with, and I think all the places there, what's really special about them is how united they are, how this community that is very it's like a family, how basically it's like a regional council that's built of all these little kibbutzes and moshav, and each one has its unique story, and how they have so much history as well. And it's our ancestors and our grandfathers who came and were the settlers of these kibbutzes and these moshavs, and it has a lot of history and family history for us. And yes, there were a lot of people who were very much not just actively, not just wanting peace, but actively doing things for it. Actively, very, very, what you would say is liberal. What Israeli would say is left wing. That was the stereotype about them. And I think that on October 7th, for me at least, this illusion of a world where my children and the Palestinian children on the other side of the world or of the border will be able to play together in the playground. That idea burst on October 7th. But it didn't burst because of Israel. It burst because I realized that we don't have a partner. And I think that's what a lot of these people and all of these peacemakers and activists have realized, is that no matter how much you're going to want this, and you'll actively do things for it, when we're talking about hatred that is rooted and it's inside their education system, when you give a little kid a toy of a gun and you teach them to hate a Jew, and you teach them that Jew stole your land, and you teach them all these things, what future does that kid have other than growing up to be a terrorist? What future do the people there have when a terror organization is ruling over them, hiding behind them, using all that money and that loads of money that's coming into Gaza that is supposed to be used for the bright future of the Palestinians and for their healthcare and for their education system, but instead is going into missiles and rocket launchers and tunnels and weapons and for terror. So I realized that, and I think this is, again, I can speak only on behalf of myself, but I think a lot of us have realized that. And statistically, by the way, Israel has become a little more right-wing. The people have become more because of that, because they realize that no matter how much they're going to want this, well, you don't have a partner who wants the same thing. And how do you fight an ideology? Like,
Right.
how do you eliminate, and it's not eliminating Hamas, you eliminate as many heads of like the terror commanders, whatever they have. It's the ideology. Like, how do you get rid of that? I don't think we have an answer for that yet.
Right. That's exactly what makes it so difficult, right? And the fact that they are willing to hide behind their civilians. People dismiss this idea of
Right.
human shields, but it's very obvious. We are right now living in the aftermath of one of the most precise targets yesterday night and this morning against, the regime in Iran. And it's absolutely crazy what happens when you can find the leaders of a government and they're not hiding behind civilians. Israel is incredibly precise, and the Mossad is at the highest level, really, that I've seen. It's so unbelievably incredible to see how incredible they are. So it really drives the point home that they use civilians as human shields and they see their lives as meaningless. And it's not that it's Israel genociding a group of people. That's what the other side has really told everybody, because they use these words that for those people in the middle that you and I are trying to reach, they hear these words like genocide and ethnic cleansing and apartheid, and they run towards them. Because if there is a genocide anywhere, then of course someone should oppose it. We just don't believe that's what's happening. And we believe they're using these words to weaponize the community against Israel. And unfortunately, in this digital age where people have TikTok and Instagram, that fight is really easy to lose. I don't know how much anti-Semitism you've seen in the digital landscape, but for me, my company's called Iron Dome Coffee, and there's no hiding who I am.
Right.
So I definitely get a whole lot of it, and at times it can be really scary. I'm not going to lie. Some people really hate you. Really hate me, and sometimes it gets scary. But part of what keeps me in this game is that, like you, I feel like I'm contributing to something greater, not only for the sake of Israel and for my family that lives there, but for humanity. I really, really believe that I'm on the right side of humanity. Have you experienced anti-Semitism online, and how do you feel when you see it? How do you react against it? Because I'm not the type to stoop to the level to fight somebody like the keyboard warriors that you mentioned earlier. I'm not that type. I also like to make videos that are educational, and I always refer people to Unpacked Media. Shout out to them. We were just highlighted in their paper this week. But how do you deal with anti-Semitism online? How do you go about educating people, and have you seen it work?
So I think online, it's everywhere. I think the biggest form of anti-Semitism today is the fact that it is online. It's a little bit more rare to see this on the day-to-day Jew, but almost every single Jew has experienced anti-Semitism online.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself is a crazy fact. And again, I think that, this crowd that is usually not a crowd who would engage with you so much, but it's just there to like backlash, use all those, like you said, all those big words that are used as also like the propaganda against Israel. I think that like doing videos like this and just making sure that they get around and just trying to do the little that we can to inform people, that's our way to deal with that. I don't think we're going to be able to try and like target every single one of them, and we're not going to be able to engage with all of them. And at the end of the day, there's a lot of them. Like by quantity, we're talking about such a large proportion that like it's just bigger than us. But we can do the little that we can, and every single person who decides to speak up and be a voice and inform and share things and just be a voice and interview and all those things and make videos or make posts, those things do help. And I think the big thing is that this PR war that everyone's talking about and this advocacy, I don't think that it is no longer on the hands of Israel, but it's in the hands of the Jewish people. We are the people of advocacy. We're the people of hasbara. The hasbara is on us.
Yes.
It is on us, and also we'll do it way better, in my opinion. So I think it's all those little things. And like I said, you're not going to be able to convince everyone. You're not going to persuade everyone. But you don't even know how many people are exposed to the content you are creating. And even if I tell people this, even if you have 100 followers on Instagram and they're all your friends, you are still doing something by uploading an Instagram story about a hostage or whatever opinion you have, or something about what's going on in Israel, because you don't know the butterfly effect and you don't know who is going to be exposed to this, and because it is something.
So who are your mentors and who are your heroes?
Wow, what a good question.
I'm trying my hardest here, you know.
That's a good
You're
one.
actually my first guest. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, this is a big deal.
Oh my God,
Mhm.
it is a big deal. Oh my
Mhm.
God, I'm excited.
I'm going to celebrate with
What
some.
an honor.
Yeah, right? You got to celebrate with some Haifa hazelnut.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
So, wow, good question. Who are my? I have a hard time with the word mentors, but like people I look up to, for me would be like, in my opinion, the good old like Zionists who worked the land of this country. Like, for example, my grandfather, who was a Holocaust survivor, he survived Auschwitz
Wow.
and came to Israel after trying to get to Israel, and he was stopped and stayed in Cyprus for a whole year in those immigration camps. And he's one of the people who worked the land and chose to work in agriculture and physically like values this land. And I feel like so much of who I am and how much I love Israel. And I always say, like, I would die for Israel tomorrow. Like, if needed, I would die for this country. That's how much I love it. And it all came from him, and it all came from my roots, and it all came from those people who have come and worked this land and don't take it for granted. And to this day, I think that none of us take this land for granted. And it's the fact that each and every one of us are willing to go and go out there in the field and fight. And a lot of those other people that I admire and are my idols are so many people like Aner Shapira, and people who risk their lives. Aner Shapira, for those who don't know, was at the Nova Festival, and he's good friends with Hirsch. He went with Hirsch Goldberg to the party, and they were in the migunit, in the little like safe room where they were hiding from the terrorists. And when the terrorists were throwing in grenades inside, Aner is the one that like threw them back. He picked them up and he threw them back outside. To me, if that's not heroism, like I don't know what is. And I really look up to these people and say, wow, I hope and wish that if, God forbid, I'll be in a situation anywhere close to something like that, that I'll also like risk my life for other people's lives. And Aner is just one person out of so many heroes and people that died for other people that they don't even know. People who on October 7th took their weapon, some without a weapon. Ben Shimon is another one of them, for example, who drove down and rescued people who they don't even know, and people who had opportunities to escape, but they decided to go back and fight for these people. And I think that's also something in our Jewish DNA as well. So those would be all those people who, like, there are so many that I can't even tell you the names of all of them because I don't even know all of the stories, that's insane to me.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. That's an amazing answer. Yeah, אני רוצה לעשות את השאלה הזאת גם בעברית. מי הגיבורים שלך?
הגיבורים שלי הם כל אותם אנשים שהקריבו את החיים שלהם בשבילנו, בשביל המדינה הזאת. הם כל אותם חיילים שמסכנים את החיים שלהם באופן יומיומי. אותם אנשים שיעשו הכל בשבילנו, בשביל החטופים. האנשים שנלחמים עלינו. ושהיהדות היא, וארץ ישראל זה משהו שהוא כל כך תמוה בהם וחשוב להם. והגיבורים שלי הם האנשים שבזכותם אני פה, שבזכותם אני יכולה לישון בשקט במדינת ישראל בלילה.
Amazing. I have another question for you about that. Have you been to the Holocaust sites before? Have you visited?
Yeah, I have.
What was that like for you as someone whose grandfather survived?
So in Israel, at around when we're in 11th-ish grade, I think, we get an opportunity to go to Poland, to go visit the concentration camps and like Holocaust museums and Auschwitz-Birkenau. And I decided to go there. So I was really young. I think I was around 15 or so. And I decided to go. And for me, that was a really like strong experience, not just because we get to go and see about what our ancestors went through, but also it was personal for me to see where my grandfather was and where he survived and the railways that he worked there and he built.
Which country did you mention?
He was from Romania, and he was then taken to Auschwitz-Birkenau. It was a very strong experience. It was a very difficult one, but it was one that like made me at the end very proud, made me even more connected to Israel and to my Judaism. And I think people compare a lot between October 7th and the Holocaust, which obviously you can't compare as for the numbers, but like the intention that is the hatred for Jewish people. I think now looking back at it and like thinking about that time when I was 15 and went to Auschwitz-Birkenau, and I saw it, and you always think to yourself, like, the one debate we had is like, how could this even happen? How could people stay indifferent to this? How could the world see this happening and be silent about it? And today, this is happening too. Like things, hatred towards Jews and actively do this, and the fact that people aren't condemning terror organizations, the fact that people still are taking sides with a terror organization is absurd. I was in Berlin not long ago, and like on a bus there, like I saw a graffiti of "I love Hamas, I heart Hamas."
Crazy, the stupidity of people.
Exactly. And you know, I say like, A, they're brainwashed, but also like I really pity those people. Like the amount of how much you're blind to this and the misinformation. Like if there was a terror organization in Israel of Israelis and Jews, I would condemn it.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah.
You know, the reason I asked that question is because a lot of people don't like when I go into that, category. People, it might bring up sad emotions for them to, revisit the history of the Jewish people. But I was in 12th grade
Really?
when I went. Yeah. And I think that there was nothing more important in my entire life. Seriously. I went there. I had a notebook. I wrote down everything, how I felt, what I saw. My grandfather's family, he had many members of his family who passed away in the Holocaust. And seeing that they weren't able to live their lives to the fullest because of hatred against Jewish people for reasons that don't even make sense on paper or in practice, of course. It's the most emotionally difficult thing to process. And it's even worse to think that at times like now, it feels like it's never going to go away. But on the other end of that spectrum, I do want to point out that even though the most horrible things imaginable have happened to the Jewish people in Eastern Europe in the 1940s and in Israel today, for people who you love and care about deeply, I think there are some really interesting things that can be learned from this, and taken from it, where I wouldn't be who I am as a person. I wouldn't be involved with Iron Dome Coffee and building a company that really is unapologetic about supporting Israel and donating to wounded soldiers and donating to Magen David Adom and other causes. It really means the world to me. And I'll match you in saying that I would die for Israel in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Because where would we be without it? Yeah. We'd be dead anyway. How many examples throughout history do we need to see for people hating Jews for reasons that don't make sense, and they justify them based on their anger, and they're completely blinded by their rage. That's what I like to say all the time. They're blinded by their rage, to attack Israel.
Hatred brings people together.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Hatred brings people together. It really does. Something that unites people in a really, really bizarre
It's crazy.
way. And I'll tell you something that's really interesting is that, like, you're right, and Israel is, at the end of the day, Israel is the home of the Jewish people. And like it really is, and we have no other place to go. And at the end of the day, you know that if something will happen to you as a Jew, this is a question I put out there. If something would happen to you as a Jew out there in the diaspora, do you feel like you'd be protected? Do you feel like that country's army would come and protect you? The government would protect you? Because I don't know. Because in Israel, you know that you do have that the army is there to protect you, that's why we need that army there. And I think something really interesting is that I work a lot in bringing Jews to Israel and showing them Israel through my eyes. And I've been working in that field of diaspora Jews for years and years now. And all of them share that they feel much safer in Israel rather than back home. And this is during wartime.
Isn't that crazy?
That's
I
crazy.
Honestly agree. Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's crazy. I agree because you know what though? This is the truth. It's like, at least in Israel, you know who's your enemy.
Yeah.
And they are on that side of the line and we're on this side of the line. And even though things are completely crazy, it's a little different in New York City of all places because they're right outside of your apartment. Yeah. And you don't know what they're going to do. And they can be violent and they can be anti-Semitic, and they come in such numbers that they can get away with it.
And who's going to protect you?
Right. So it's a crazy place to take the conversation, but it's like, what would we do without Israel? And even when Israel is under attack, it's like, I was just there 2 weeks ago.
Oh, no way.
And I was supposed to go again. I was going to be there for a month. It's probably going to be canceled now, the flight, but I just want to be there so badly. And it's something that my American friends, even Jewish people who aren't connected to Israel. You know, my dad is Israeli and he grew up there and everything. So I'm really connected, and it's a core part of my identity. But what if you didn't have that? You know, people watch the news and they base their opinions off of that. Yeah. When you go to Israel, and I think everybody who's Jewish and everybody who wants to learn about you have to go and feel what they're feeling. There's such a sense of pride to be in a group of people who are just like you and who have the same problems as you, and you're fighting the fight together. So I think it's incredibly amazing. And we're running out of time here, so I want to end with a question. But before that, I want to preface that by saying, on behalf of the entire Iron Dome community, we love what you're doing and we love your efforts. And it would be a dream come true for a podcast like this or for anything else that you do to continue to inspire people like that little girl from your hometown who come up to you and hug you and say, you're really making a difference in the world. And I 100% believe that you're making a tangibly positive influence in the world. There's nothing better than that. And I want to end with a broad question that you could take however you would like. What are you hoping for? Aside from the return of the people you love the most, how can we get that to happen? And what are you hoping for in terms of the steps that need to take place in order to bring Ziv and Gali home?
I'll say that there's two objectives to this war. The first is to return all of the hostages back home, all of them. The second one is to eliminate that terror group, Hamas, so that those Palestinians will actually have a chance at a better future. And everyone knows what returning the hostages back home means. Everyone understands what the end game is here, right? Everyone understands what that means. What does eliminating Hamas mean? When do we know that we've eliminated Hamas? There's no answer to that. I don't think the government has. I don't think a general in the army has. I don't have an answer to that. If anybody does have an answer, I'd love to hear their answer because I really don't know. Getting the hostages back home is the most important thing, is the number one priority. And it can be done in so many ways. And how it should be done is to talk about them, is to raise awareness, is to continuously talking about them, because when we say they're running out of time, it's not just a slogan, it is a reality. And it is our duty, like I said, to do whatever we can. I invite people who are listening to us who are Jews and non-Jews to come to Israel as well. I think that's a big act of support, to come and feel and see things in your eyes and ears, and only listen, by the way, to the things that you've actually seen and heard. And even I myself, like completely am now not looking at the media, and I don't get my information from the media, not the Israeli one, and of course not the international media. But get your sources right, get them validated, and come to Israel. And if you can't come to Israel, then think of what you can do outside of Israel to talk about this. But the worst thing you can do is to be indifferent. Just don't be silent while this is happening right now in the world. And I want to end with obviously sending a prayer to all of our soldiers who are fighting for us, and the fact that we can even sleep at night is because of them, and a prayer for the safety of Israel, especially today and whatever's going on right now in the world, and that Israel's fighting the fight of the future of so many countries, and the return of all of our loved ones, and Ziv and Gali, of course, and to ask people, to end with what I ask myself every single day, and that is, what can you do for the hostages today, and what can you do for them tomorrow?
Absolutely. Noa, thank you so much for coming on. It was a real pleasure, and keep up the great work. So before we go, Noa has a special gift for me. So Noa, I'm ready to accept my gift.
So I always give this to people who host me and do things for me. And so you have here a prayer for the hostages, the yellow wristband that I encourage people to walk with, the yellow pin, which I have as well on me always, a pin of Ziv and Gali, and a pin of the Israeli flag, and a blue bracelet with a Hamsa on it as well. So that is my thanks to you. And you can walk with your pin, put it on your bag, and that's the little things that we said we can do for the hostages.
Amazing. Amazing. Noa, thank you so much for this gift. I'm going to wear it around with pride, and hopefully we can get the rest of the pro-Israel community to do the same. So thank you very much.
Of course.